Let me see what Ben has to say. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Can't believe the sun is still rising after thousands of years of doing so. It's a surprise. It is a surprise. Bon matin. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Hello, B for victory. Hope you're doing well. Smithereen. Good morning. A bon après-midi de France. Global warming boiling here. No global warming boiling. No global boiling here. What the hell? Am I dyslexic this morning? No, just summer. Well, I'll tell you, if we got some global cooling here in Montreal, it couldn't have been 50 degrees yesterday morning. It couldn't have been. And I think our high was like 70. So we're stealing all your cold air. Come get some. If you want it, come get some. Yesterday, it was a beautiful day, though. I mean, just beautiful. I love the weather here. I don't really complain about hot or cold. It doesn't bug me too much. All right. Hot or cold, you got to just thank God. We got a nice sunrise. We're doing great. And Bitcoin is running. So all that's left for us people to do this morning is have a coffee and talk about what's going on in fiat world. As you know, we like to start every morning with the fakest news we can find. What is Moscow time today? Today's one of the best Moscow times you're ever going to hear. Hold on. Calvis is telling us he's got some global boiling over there in Latvia. Oh, BTC is still boiling here in Latvia. I thought you said some global boiling in Latvia. Okay. You're doing okay then. You're doing okay. All right. So here's today. I keep telling you, we have some of the best Moscow times ever, right? And here I am again telling you this morning, this might be the greatest Moscow time collection I've ever found. It's amazing. So NBC News telling us a little bit about the mental health of Americans and maybe giving us some insight into what's going on with TikTok, but we don't need to add comment to what's going on in Moscow time. This is just what NBC News says. A number of people are attempting to change their race by watching certain videos, hoping to manifest physical change. They have convinced themselves it works because there's other people who have convinced themselves as well, says a media professor. NBCnews.com, inside the online world of people who think they can change their race. It's just let go for it. Why not, Why not? Indeed. I'm just going in my order here. Oh, yeah, this one's good. So I went and saw the Barbie. I took my kids to see the Barbie movie this weekend. It was actually great. I loved it. I thought it was an excellent movie. But, there you go. One kid liked it. One kid really thought it was a bit sad and not that fun. But otherwise, it's fine to take kids to, I think, anyway. But someone didn't believe me. Someone didn't agree with me from Salon Magazine this weekend. Why I'm passing on the Barbie movie. My daughter already receives enough unintentional whiteness. Okay, so he was super excited about the Barbie film until he realized he would have to explain their ideas of beauty to my child. So it didn't work out for him. Didn't get to take his daughter to the movie. Here's a good one. This is the global boiling stuff, right? We got quite a few global boiling stories happening these days. This one comes from The Guardian. Joe Biden must declare a climate emergency, and he must do so now. Biden had the last opportunity of any president to keep the world under 1.5 degrees Celsius of heating. Instead, he is squandering time we do not have. So that's not working out for him. And then if that's not enough, right, then you get CNN saying why Republicans can't get off of their climate bind, even as extreme heat overwhelms the US, right? They can't get over it. They just can't get over it, right? Now, speaking of can't get over it, right? Unrelated Moscow time. They're not even related, but this comes from the New York Times. This is a real headline from this morning, guys. Not kidding. I don't know what to say. This is peak Moscow time. All right. So I'm going to try and read it without laughing, okay? NewYorkTimes.com. The ongoing mystery of COVID's origin, right? So here's the tweet that came with it. The world still doesn't know how the coronavirus pandemic started. Here's what is known and why it matters. All right. So it's a total mystery. We don't know. It's still a mystery. What are you doing, right? Republicans can't get over it. they can't get over their climate bind, right? They can't get over it. But also COVID happening, right? How did it start, right? So if it's not enough for them to say how it starts, Fox News is wondering today that COVID hospitalizations are on the rise. Should signal a late summer wave, says the CDC. So the CDC is telling us we got a little more COVID coming, a little late summer COVID rise, but we don't know where it came from. Nah, come on, we don't know. We're almost to the end. I saved the best for last. I saved the best for last. Getting over things, cognitive dissonance, right? Who knows what's going on with the global boiling, and Republicans can't get over it, but where did COVID come from? And it's coming this summer. These are all really top quality Moscow time. But USA Today has, I think, created the greatest Moscow time headline in the history of Moscow time. This is what it is. USAtoday.com. I got to read the headline and the tweet that came with it because both of them are just gorgeous, right? Listen to this. USA Today headline, trying to slime the president. Will GOP attacks on Hunter Biden hurt Joe Biden in 2024? I don't know. Here's the tweet that comes with it. Hunter Biden's foibles provide ammunition for Republicans who want to inflict harm on Joe Biden ahead of the 2022 presidential campaign. It's amazing. Who can beat that? Now, this one isn't Moscow time, but it kind of is, and it's related to it. It's related to what Hunter said, but it'll also underline where we're headed this morning with our theme, right? The separation of money and state. And we got to congratulate our leader of the free world, Joe Biden. He got a new grandkid this weekend. Finally, he got his new grandkid, or at least he acknowledged his new grandkid this weekend. And NBC News is there for it. President Biden publicly acknowledges his 7th grandchild for the first time. President Biden publicly acknowledges this grandkid. Well, congratulations, Joe. You got a new grandkid. I'm happy for you. I hope you love her. Oh, by the way, I got to say this. I got to say it, right? So Hunter also got away. It wasn't Moscow time. When I said the other day that he gave her paintings to pay for the child support, and I couldn't tell the difference if it was true or not, I actually put it in Moscow time because I was like, no way. Turns out it is true. And here's the best part. You gotta sit back and you gotta give Hunter Biden some credit here. I mean, for real. Because first of all, we don't know if he made the art, but it's pretty good, right? But here's the best part. Because there's some kind of track record with the art selling, right? Because he's selling it for $500,000 here and $1 million there and $100,000 there, and prints are going for $80,000 and blah, blah, blah. So he's now actually able to give the art to the stripper baby mama. Okay. So he's able to give the art to the stripper baby mama, which when Joe said Hunter was the smartest person he knew, I'm sorry, but he's not far off the mark, because what happens here is that now, not a good person, but smart. Okay. We can't deny it. So the reason, of course, we all know the money laundering aspects of the art allows Hunter to sell access, right? So that's how he's able to charge $500,000 for the stuff and whatever. But now, because there's a track record of the art selling, right? There's a track record of the art selling. So there's prices associated with it. It's typically this, it's typically that. So he can now give the art to the baby mama. But of course, the art is being sold for political influence, right? It's not like you're actually paying for the art. You're paying for it because you're buying it off of Hunter Biden, which is the case of all art, by the way. Who made it is usually the most important part of it, right? So that Hunter is making the art, and only he can really, because obviously it's being sold with the treats, right? With the access. So he sells the thing with the access, creates a track record of price and value, and then now is able to give the art to the stripper. Has to count it for the same amount of money that it's technically worth. But of course, she's not selling public access, right? It's not like the stripper mama can be like, oh, my old father-in-law, Joe Biden's gonna do me a solid, right? She can't sell it for anything. It's zero to her. So come on. I mean, guys, we don't want to live Hunter's life, right? Nobody here wants to be Hunter Biden, right? But it goes to what I've been saying for a long time. If we would have just hired Hunter Biden in the Bitcoin business or the crypto people should have hired him a long time ago. They'd had none of these troubles, none of them, right? All kinds of things just sort of go away. And to anyone who says Hunter Biden isn't the smartest person that Joe's ever known, well, I mean, come on, you're not getting paid $1 million for art being counted as alimony and child support and all this stuff. Come on, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, right? So today's theme, of course, is this separation of money and state, right? So it's something that's been at the heart of Bitcoin for a long time. Some people even think that when Satoshi Nakamoto published the white paper on October 31st, 2008, it was to signify the symmetry of the Lutheran doctrine that was nailed to the door of whatever church that created the separation of state and church, right? The separation of church and state, also published on October 31st, but many, many hundreds of years ago. So this symmetry of October 31st, some people say was absolutely predetermined or intentional on the part of Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know, but it's an amazing coincidence, and it has helped frame what Bitcoin is for a lot of people, right? The Genesis block with the message, of course, encoded inside of it about the bank on the brink of the second bailout. And all of these aspects really underline that Satoshi, of course, was thinking about the separation of money and state. And so a lot of us just believe it is absolutely intentional, that the theme of Bitcoin is the separation of money and state. And the October 31st date is a big deal. Now, what I think is actually happening is the election that we are currently in. And the reason why I continue to predict that Bitcoin will be the most important story in the 2024 election is because of this focus on the separation of money and state. We don't really know how to do it yet, or at least Bitcoiners have thought it through for years now, but it's not like a widely accepted idea. The frame of separating money and state and what you get out of it isn't really well understood or even really well exercised. You still hear today, when you say to people, well, I want to separate money and state, and they'll say, well, who's going to pay for the roads, right? And you're like, well, okay, all right. We got to back up a bit and make sure everyone's on board to understand what it is we're doing. But the good news is what we're seeing happen in the world today, what we're seeing in the news this morning, what we're going to see in the news all week, what we're going to see over the summer and right up to 2024 is going to continue to hone in on this theme. It will be very clear to everyone why you need to separate money and state. And I don't think they're going to worry too much about roads when it's all over, hopefully. But here's what we got. So first of all, we're going to talk about, so within the separation of money and state, one of the things that's happened over the past few years is state functions themselves, right? The division of powers between the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary have been blended. It's almost all one and the same now, right? The Congress kind of looks like just another layer of bureaucracy. And then the judicial oversight also can be seen as a bureaucratic function. We're going to talk about that, the SEC and its enforcement division and what's going on with enforcement and quasi-judicial bodies. So these judiciaries that are put inside of enforcement agencies like the SEC, and what does it mean, and a Supreme Court case that's coming up. We've talked about it a few times, but it does go into this world of is it even appropriate for the SEC to have a judicial branch inside of it? Because that is like putting a judicial branch inside of the executive branch, right? Because the SEC is part of executive function of the United States, and all of a sudden it is also a judicial branch. So this is not I'm not the first person who's complained about this. There is a court in 2022 that said all judiciary, all quasi-judicial or arbitrational functions inside of executive branch agencies are unconstitutional. So we're going to talk about that in a second, right? So let's first talk about the thing that's happening this weekend about congressional oversight. So it turns out now there's a community note attached to it, okay? But I'll read it and I'll mention what's happening today. So the Hunter Biden case has all these people coming out of nowhere, so it becomes a little difficult to track in a sense, right? And you can sort of see that in lay people's impression of the Hunter Biden case. It's always just like, well, wasn't that the thing we talked about last week? And wasn't it just about dick pics and all of this stuff, right? So what's happening now is this guy, Devon Archer, who's already been arrested for other things, and Devon Archer is related to the Biden family, apparently is coming to spill the beans today, right? Today, Monday. And there are folks who are saying that the White House is trying to push him, and the Department of Justice to push him into prison so that he can't come and testify. So Miranda Devine, who's been community noted, says the following. The DOJ is trying to arrest Devon Archer ahead of this bombshell testimony Monday about Joe Biden's involvement in his son Hunter's Ukraine businesses when he was vice president, U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, right? So the Southern District of New York, if you don't know this, is one of the sketchiest courts in America, right? Damian Williams issued a menacing letter yesterday, Saturday, telling Judge Abrams to order Archer to go to jail immediately to serve a one-year sentence on his fraud conviction. So this is the community notes that's been attached to this Miranda Devine tweet saying, not according to Archer and his own attorney. The letter seeks for Archer to set a date to begin his jail sentence on an unrelated prior conviction, which Archer has been delaying. This admin request is not expected to have any impact on Monday, but it doesn't really matter. You get Representative Matt Gaetz and a few others that are coming back because it still is related to this whole idea of the Department of Justice, just as in this case, sort of interfering with what's going on with congressional investigations. So everything that we've seen so far on Merrick Garland not having full latitude to go and prosecute things about the Hunter Biden case, that things have been capped, things have been managed from Washington, D.C. into the different courts, has brought up an entire conversation about the congressional oversight, right? So does Congress get to look at what judiciary, proper practice of the judiciary? And of course it does, right? Congress has oversight over executive branch functions and over judicial branch functions to a limited extent, right? It's not absolute oversight. They don't have any ability to quash things or veto things or anything like that. But they can certainly look into the proper administration of justice. That's what the judiciary has over the executive and legislative. And the legislative also has this sort of oversight to make sure nothing's going on, right? So now, because of this judicial interference conversation, you get all kinds of people like Matt Gaetz and everyone coming today to have sort of emergency talks around congressional oversight of these things. And so Matt Gaetz comes in and says, and this is all related to this this Miranda Devine tweet about this Devon Archer fella. So here's what he says. 2 members of the House Judiciary Committee are now calling for lawmakers to return to Washington for immediate emergency hearings on the Department of Justice's interference with congressional oversight. Mike Johnson is an elected member of House leadership and one of the brightest attorneys in the House. This is all because Hunter's problems and Joe's problems merge with the testimony of Devon Archer. Time for action right now. You get a couple other people picking up on this, right? Matt Gaetz also coming in again with more tweets. The Department of Justice is now actively committing the crime of obstructing a congressional investigation. If Devon Archer isn't in the witness chair on Monday, we better haul every SOB at the DOJ before Congress every day to make them pay for this. Let me know. I'll come back to Washington tomorrow to do this. Archer is in that chair or Garland is. Yield me the time and let me ask the questions. I'll handle it from there. Right. So everyone here talking about what's going on. Is there still congressional oversight? Is it still even possible? And it weirdly comes right on the heels of one of the most amazing stories you're going to hear. So this is all just congressional oversight, right? Do the separation of powers in the United States still hold, or are they completely blended together? And all we have is this rump of executive action that can overwhelm any other branch of government, legislative, state, judicial, blah, 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 right? So we're going to see, right? It looks like that. It looks like that's what we're seeing. Now just think of this messed up separation of powers question, right? Judicial oversight and congressional oversight. And now look at what's happened with everything to do with FinCEN and FinTrack and FATF and everything that we see from our friend our hilarious friend Hunter Biden, who might be the smartest person Joe Biden's ever met. I'm not kidding anymore, right? If you can sell art like him, go for it. And again, here's what we know, though. Here's Kaneko the Great, right? This is an update of what he said a couple days ago, but I'll read it again because he's been sort of laying it out. And the simpler you can make the Hunter Biden story, the better it is, because as I said, it's so complicated now. It's like Russia collusion. It's like, this thing on Hunter and that thing, and then wasn't that clear? Now, I know how to organize it, but you need to be able to say it straight in order for people. You need to be able to say it straight. Did I get wet on something? Don't know. So you need to be able to say it straight, right? And if you can't say it straight, then you lose track of it, and you're not able to sort of convince people of what's going on, because that's often what you see, right? You like that Jim Gaffigan guy that everyone's talking about on the Joe Rogan show. Now, Joe Rogan was able to put the story down straight, and Jim Gaffigan, I saw all these quotes. Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, by the way, destroyed by Joe Rogan. It's not exactly what I saw. I saw a guy who literally was just ignorant. He'd been misled, didn't know, still doesn't actually understand that the news isn't news, still thinks that like people in government are doing their best and everyone's trying to make a better world and all of these stupid things. And so he just is ignorant, right? He's just, unfortunately, he's been hypnotized. But I still see someone who had intentions to understand and would like to understand what's going on in the world. So SAS Finance says, I like Jim Gaffigan back in the day. Look, I disagree with him on 100 million things and believe him to be completely brainwashed. And again, I have no patience, zero patience in this world for people who go after Trump supporters. Trump's a big boy. You can criticize him all you want. I'll never make a stink about it. And so Jim Gaffigan is one of those people who did say MAGA, stupid people, blah, 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 blah. So, but I feel compelled to even forgive him in a sense, because I think he's going to come back on the good side. I think this is someone whose intentions are, he just simply wants to be a good person and make a better world, and he's been hypnotized and lied to. So we got to find place for people like Jim Gaffigan, no matter what. We just have to. Right now, I forgive him for every bad thing he said about MAGA people. And what I saw when Joe Rogan, in that clip that's going around, interviewed him, is someone who legitimately didn't know and was interested in hearing about how he might have been hypnotized. So I didn't see cognitive dissonance there. I just saw someone who fell for lies. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. I didn't see someone angry about hearing the truth. He wasn't angry, right? I saw him. So Melvin's Rule says, listen, it's the same thing. Yeah. Scott Adams discussed it on Saturday. He says, Jim has an open mind. I feel the same. Right? Yeah. Yeah, and Tommy says the same thing, right? Still love Gaff. Don't be broken brain by being mad about a broken brain. Yeah, he didn't get mad, and that's all I wanted to say about it, right? And indeed, other people have said that too. I didn't see the broken brain. I saw someone who I think has good intentions, and I think you can just almost use him as a proxy for a wider distribution of the truth, right? Because I think he's an honest player in the game. I do. And I think that you can sort of see it come out. So here's what we know, though, from this is all legitimate and cataloged and real and happening. And this is what we heard the other day, right? Kaneko the Great says the following. Rep James Comer says 6 banks, including JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, submitted over 170 suspicious activity reports to the Treasury Department regarding the Biden family, alleging their involvement in money laundering, human trafficking, and tax fraud. So this is all that FinCEN stuff. This is everything that Bitcoiners are having to deal with all the time, right? This goes back to 1964. It goes back to Bank Privacy Act. It goes back to following the money to find out where dissent is coming from. And all of these things that are an absolute mutilation of the separation of money and state, or not a mutilation of the separation of money and state, a further convergence, a further binding of money and state, which is not something I think anyone wants to see more of, right? So now that we have this case where, and isn't it funny that suspicious activity reports are called SARs? And then COVID is called SARS, COVID, and we're SARS, right? It's still called COVID is a SARS, right? So, so SARS and SARS. Hey, I mean, it's happening, right? Simulation is absolutely saving on CPU here. So SARS, he had a bunch of SARs, and what that ends up doing is now that we're seeing all this judicial oversight stuff, congressional oversight stuff, right? And we see what Hunter Biden has done to the actual money laundering regime, the FinCEN regime. We have all of these suspicious activity reports, and what prosecutions did we get? We got none, none, right? It was just 170 reports over years now. This wasn't last week. This wasn't 2 weeks ago. This has been going on for years from when he was vice president. And by the time the Hunter Biden laptop came out, everybody knew that this money laundering shit was real. It's been known since then, at least, right? And influence peddling and all of those things. So imagine that now that we know that all of this stuff is happening, and you got 6 banks, you got 170 suspicious activity reports. This would have sunk any exchange in the world. Any Bitcoin exchange that had 170 suspicious activity reports filed against them would have heard something from somebody, right? So while all this is going on, and you're getting all of this attention on Hunter Biden and FinCEN and FinTrack and all these other people, simultaneous to that, you get Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham, right? Lindsey Graham. They came up again with their ridiculous anti-money laundering crypto bill, and they've resubmitted it in Congress. And of course, the whole stupid thing is about the anti-money laundering regulations. So Elizabeth Warren and her dumb bill comes out with Senator Warren introduced legislation that would subject digital assets to specific anti-money laundering regulations. And it's all this shit again, right? So Lindsey Graham, of course, is there, and Elizabeth Warren talking all about, oh, we need the anti-money laundering stuff because money laundering is going on. Well, guess what? Guess what? The executive branch of the US government is doing it. And they're manipulating the judicial branch to not even know what's going on, right? So there's no congressional oversight. And simultaneous to all this, you get the SEC come in this morning and is telling Coinbase this morning that they need to delist all other shitcoins from their exchange because they're fucking securities and anti-money laundering and So they go and tell Coinbase that this morning. They actually say it, right? The SEC actually says to them, delist everything, right? You can't have any shitcoins anymore. You must comply with useless laws, delist every other asset. So simultaneous to this bipartisan legislation about money laundering being a major problem and Lindsey Graham signing on to it, right? And they're even going after unhosted wallets. So they're going after normal Bitcoin custodial wallets in this bill, like psycho stuff, super psycho and stupid and makes no sense, right? And by psycho, I don't mean like, oh, power grabbing. I mean, like, are you serious? Do you understand how technology works? Are you going to play man in the middle? And you're some people call her Pocahontas. I think it's like a little old and not that clever. I know Trump wore it out, let's say, right? But there's other stupid names you can get for this lady, right? And just imagine her with like a bunch of basketball players trying to play like man in the middle, like throwing a ball over her head, and she's not capable. She doesn't know what's going on, right? She can get angry, and she's building an army. They say, she's building an army. But that obviously isn't going to help her. And so going after Coinbase. Now, here's what we know about even the SEC, right? And this is something I've been saying for a long time. So now that they're saying to the SEC, or the SEC is saying to Coinbase, delist everything. Remember the case that I mentioned at the very start of this. This is all about separation of powers. This is all about what has happened, what money has allowed to happen, right? That all functions of government have just bled into each other. You can't tell the difference between executive, judicial, congressional. It's all just power. And when you think about the separation of powers, now that we're starting to see congressional oversight become an issue with this DOJ interference in the Hunter Biden case. And then the Hunter Biden case is actually related to money laundering, and you never actually got judiciary involved because we don't like it, right? Don't want to talk about it. So now that you have someone here trying to make more anti-money laundering regime laws at the same time as the SEC is going after these folks, I think it's going to bring that case that I've mentioned for a long time now. It started in 2022. It's I can't remember the name of the guy, but Jay something. I'll get the case for you. I've mentioned it a few times. The point of the case, though, is that something like the SEC, that is a executive function. Here's the logic of the case, right? And this is what they're saying. Something like the SEC, which has executive functions, has created their own enforcement and judicial branch inside of it, right? They're not relying on normal civil courts. They have their own SEC enforcement courts. Now, the pretext to this, as someone who went to law school like myself, we always thought of the securities lawyers, the SEC type people, as sort of the brain surgeons of law, because it's the most complicated stuff and really, really hard to follow, hard to track, really nuanced, really particular. They get paid a lot of money. And when you're just a kid at law school, you don't really know the difference. Like, wow, they make a lot of money, right? Wow, I wonder what they do. What you find out is that because the SEC is inside baseball, none of the laws make sense to any normal judge. That's why it's so hard to follow. That's why it is a full-time job just to track the enforcement capacity and legislative authority the SEC gives itself as an executive function that has a judicial function baked in. So someone complained about this and brought it to the courts. And last year in 2022, the court said, you're right. This is an improper separation of powers. There is no way the SEC is supposed to have its own judiciary inside of it. All of these quasi-judicial arbitration posts have to be abandoned. They're all unconstitutional is what the case said. So now that's gone to the Supreme Court, and I think they're going to win. I think it's going to pass. I think it's going to win. And the result of it is simply this. You can still have securities laws, but a normal court has to be able to interpret the laws. That was constitutionally the problem. And they said that the sophistication of the judicial apparatus inside of the SEC was so complicated that normal courts can't even recognize the legal logic anymore, and certainly citizens can't recognize it anymore. I would even say that all the lawyers that all the exchanges have hired also can't understand it because the rules change, because it is just captive to one industry. It is not a separation of powers. It is a linear hierarchy where the executive branch gets to tell the enforcement branch what to do. And that is not the way it was supposed to be built. So it's going to head to the Supreme Court, and they're going to say that SEC enforcement is a scam. It is unconstitutional, and they're not allowed to do those things. Now, that doesn't mean you can't create laws that limit security issuance, who can buy the securities, who distributes them. None of that has to change necessarily. But what they're saying is it got so convoluted and complicated because it was just for their own specialists, and it created its own force of gravitation, its own circular logic that made no sense to outside courts. All that you need for it to be constitutional is that there is a possibility of judicial oversight, that they can look at this stuff and say, oh, that's not good, that they have a reference. Now, because they don't have a reference, that's why it's unconstitutional. It became mutated in its form, and because it's mutated in its form, it's unrecognizable to most jurists. And for those reasons, you can start imagining it will change shortly. And so when you get the SEC come in, which is now, I think we can admit, it's very clear, it's one of the most corrupt agencies in the union, right? It's unbelievably corrupt. Now, I get Bitcoiners, they have a logic thing in their mind, right? The logic of Bitcoin isn't a security, so we win that argument, and then everyone else has to deal with the SEC. Stop. Stop. You don't want the SEC on your team. They're not on your team. They're not on your team. Your team is the separation of money and state. The SEC is the opposite of that. It's the opposite of that, right? And again, as a Bitcoiner, I will continue to embrace. I will embrace forever the scam that is Ethereum, because in the end, if we want to destroy Wall Street, there is one easy, beautiful, clear, just perfect way to do it, which is give them all the shitcoins. Just give them max shitcoins, right? Because inevitably, where Bitcoiners and crypto people differentiate, let's say, Bitcoiners don't want financial engineers running the world anymore. They don't want that, right? They want normal people who make chairs and save their money in Bitcoin to take over the world, or farmers, or whoever, right? They don't want a high cognitive load to participate in banking or in money, right? Basically, they want to reduce, I do anyway, so I'm speaking for myself and many other Bitcoiners, I think. We want to decrease the cognitive load to participate in the financial system, which means saving should be as low IQ as it ever was, right? I save my money. It's not the case anymore. Saving money is very difficult. It requires a Series 7 license from Wall Street. It requires you to be a financial engineer. And that's why a lot of these Ethereum people think the world is going to stay that way, right? They want the high IQ people to be even higher IQ, right? Now they got to be computer scientists and financial engineers. And so inevitably, I think the answer is give them all what they want, right? Just embrace Ethereum for what it is. It is a complete and vacuous, hollow scam based on finance. Now, it doesn't have to be a I'm going to rob you scam. I don't think it's an I want to rob you scam. Like, I've met enough Ethereum people. They want to make financial engineering even wicked cool, even more cool, right? Let's get wicked awesome financial engineering, and it's going to be amazing. That's mostly their financial vision. They want to get rich in the meantime, right? But it isn't about changing. It isn't about separating money and state. It's none of those things, right? So we need to just give Ethereum to Wall Street and let it sink the whole ship, right? Don't fight it. Let them have it. Let them have whatever they want, right? It's going to be great. It's going to be beautiful. So when you hear now that the Hunter Biden case, right, which is moving into the world of separation of powers, is also bleeding into this separation of powers, but separation of money and state with this SEC and hosted wallet and all this other stuff, right? And now, weirdly, this is no kidding. This is an actual piece of synchronicity and simultaneity that I think will show why this argument is going to port everywhere across the political spectrum. So just as Elizabeth Warren, you got to listen to this because this is hilarious, right? Just as Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham have combined together for this AML, KYC, FinCEN, blah, 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 blah thing on crypto, and the SEC is involved, right? Warren and Graham have got together on another bill in the same day, in the same week, right? And they just put it forward. It is the Graham-Warren plan on big tech censorship. So of course, Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham get together. They do the thing on the KYC and AML, no more money laundering, even though Hunter Biden can do it all day and no one cares. They've also come together to say that actually we need to be able to censor big tech whenever we want. We got to be able to take over big tech. And here's the plan. It's a new federal agency to entrench big tech in government apparatus, right? So oh, no kidding, no word of a lie. You've got Lindsey Graham out there on the road pushing for a plan with Elizabeth Warren that would oversee Amazon and book sales, that would oversee Facebook and what's going on with Facebook, and it would allow them to do in Twitter what they did before Elon Musk was there, and would be there again, right? So amazing that they're taking on two bills, right? So Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham both going to FinCEN and FinTrack and for big tech oversight. So they're trying to further expand legislative and executive control over important pieces of the American system. So, and amazingly doing it at the same time, right? So if this doesn't look fishy, then and doesn't look insane, well, I mean, I don't know what to say, right? So the idea here is that because these people are all joining together, and just look what we've learned about Facebook just from the past couple of days, right? This is what's going on at Facebook now. And this is without the extra turbo boost that they could get from Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham, right? Who I think are two of the most reviled, despicable people in Congress. Like I think if most people look at Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham, they kind of like they hate them. These are very highly hated people, right? Both of them. Like if I was to choose the most hated Republican on all sides, like I don't know any Republican who likes Lindsey Graham, right? None. So Lindsey Graham and Elizabeth Warren, these are not the most popular people going, right? They're not even close. But here's what we know already about Meta, right? This is just comes from Glenn Greenwald this morning, and about what's going on with Aaron Berman, right? This guy, Aaron Berman. So Aaron Berman is one of the names that's coming up in the Facebook files as far as how Facebook went out of its way to censor Hunter Biden laptop information and other stuff. And it turns out that before Aaron Berman came to work for Meta, which was only in 2019, right? He just came to work in 2019 at Facebook. He spent 17 years with the CIA. He built their misinformation policy department and wrote most of the misinformation policy. Additionally, Berman says he represented Meta with external stakeholders. This would include the White House, U.S. intel agencies. So he led the misinformation policy operation across Meta's platforms in the 2020 U.S. election, COVID-19, the Ukraine war, and elections worldwide. And this was part of the information that Joe Rogan gave to Jim Gaffigan, and that blew sort of Jim Gaffigan's mind, right? That Trump himself had an open disdain for these people because of the stuff that they were doing. And so now you're starting to see that even more. And it's becoming pretty, I think, clear to most people. So the Facebook piece even has another realm, and this is why it's going to become, so you get Facebook already doing this stuff. Now you get a bill that would give them permission to do this stuff. So further erasing the lines between separation of powers between executive and judicial. And now, right, more election interference, which I think is the worst thing this collusion and unseparation of powers can produce. And so now Facebook, their co-founder, do you ever remember the guy Dustin Moskovitz? He was the guy who started Facebook with the UFC. What's his name now? What's the guy who started Zuckerberg, right? So he started with Zuckerberg. And if you saw the movie, it was Spider-Man actor who played this guy, right? He was the one trying to sell ads when the Winklevi twins were like, "You're stupid. You should just try and get bought out." So that stupid guy was like, "I got $50,000 in ads and now I'm a billionaire." So that guy really hates, guess who? Guess who he really hates? Guess who Facebook is now helping fund a new PAC. And what is their purpose? Well, they managed to get an email to all Democrat registered voters this weekend, which is don't vote for RFK, and not even don't vote for RFK, ban him from the ballot. So there's an actual ban him from the ballot, ban RFK movement about in the Democrat Party, funded by Dustin Moskovitz, the co-founder of Facebook. Here's what Chief Nerd says. Over the weekend, Democrats across the country received a text message begging them to sign a petition to ban Robert F. Kennedy from the ballot. The group behind the campaign is the Progressive Turnout Project, a political action committee. We discovered that the single largest donation from them came from Dustin Moskovitz, right? So Moskovitz is the co-founder of this thing. Now, if you think about all of this, right? If you think about this blending of corporate and state power when it comes to the banking sector, when it comes to money laundering, when it comes to oversight of the judiciary, when it comes to obstruction of justice by the executive branch in the judiciary, when it comes to congressional oversight of the executive branch and the judiciary, when it comes to all of the separation of powers, basically the entire control mechanism we put in place for the system, all of it is coming into question now. And amazingly, one of the easiest ways to understand all of this collusion and complicated who's supposed to be where and stage management stuff, the easiest way in the end to understand it actually is this money laundering piece. It is this follow the money piece. Because in the end, it becomes very obvious when you find out that the money laundering thing, if it doesn't apply to one group and absolutely applies to another, in the case it doesn't apply to the Bidens, it 100% applies to crypto exchanges. That's the kind of thing that's easy to understand. That's the kind of thing that starts tipping people's minds and say, wait a minute, like, so the point is that because the easiest way to understand the Hunter Biden story, the easiest way to understand the collusion, the Biden corruption, the problems in Congress, the problems in the judiciary. The easiest way to understand all of that is follow the money. It's just the easiest way, because it puts everything in its place in a way that you don't have to hallucinate. You don't have to go learn something about civics, right? You don't really have to understand the appropriate calibration of the separation of powers, right? You don't need all that information. In the end, the easiest story that anyone can grab onto and understand is they're supposed to catch money launderers. They're supposed to do it by these suspicious activity reports. They filed hundreds of them for the Bidens and nothing happened. Nothing happened, right? So now Bitcoiners are expected to live by this shit too. No. We get to actually have the conversation about not how do we comply with money laundering stuff. We get to have the big conversation, how to end it forever. And that conversation is what 2024 is going to be about. It's going to be about the separation of money and state. Now, it can have all these other pieces that come in: election integrity, election interference, judicial oversight, congressional oversight. All of those things can be at play here. But nevertheless, the easiest frame to understand the separation of powers is the one we've never actually even breached, which is the separation of money and state. The separation of money and state argument is going to overwhelm and take over all these other arguments, which is a great thing, right? And the reason it is, just look at Mark Andreessen, who seems activated, right? I know Jevi and others who Jevi, thanks for coming, my man. We're talking about oversight and everything here. So these folks, right? So Mark Andreessen looks activated, looks like he's jumping in with David Sachs and all these other guys getting political. Here's what he said, though, and this is why this separation of money and state argument is going to catch on, because it goes much larger than the corruption of people like Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham, right? Here's what he says, right? Mark Andreessen highlights the rising costs of housing, healthcare, and education as the root cause of populism and the destruction of the American dream. So here's his actual quote, right? The experience of the typical American voter citizen is that the American dream, defined by the very basics of buying and living in a house, sending your kid to college, and having excellent healthcare. The prices of those things are running completely out of control. This is 100% a function of government involvement, right? So this is coming from Mark Andreessen. Now, everyone can, I agree, it's sad that he's not a max Bitcoiner and hasn't jumped into this stuff and all of those things. But nevertheless, this is a guy who I think activated in the right time and the right place is going to be a huge help. And he can help that conversation about the separation of money and state as well as anyone can. So that's good news, right? And yeah, the separation going to be great. And here's one more quote from, well, let's do some comments and then I'll get to it because this is unrelated. All right. Let's see where we are. Protestant Reformation in the 16th century was the seal. Yep. Next step in the trajectory, I hope to see more referendum using blockchain tech, so we have more direct democracy and less leaders who play. Yeah. Well, we'll see, Ace of Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be. I think a less sophisticated practice of democracy might help us. I hate autocorrect. You need more coffee? Well, I'll take a bonus sip for you, you know. Sats for life. Accelerate. We love accelerating everything. We're having a good time. In general, I believe everything can be corrupted by humans. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Ace of Bitcoin. Yeah. Anything that can have normal entropic forces, right? Decentralization brings sort of anti-fragility to that idea. All our problems are issues by so-called leaders who do not have the consent of the people and live mostly on exploitation. This has to change. It's changing. I think it's over. Here's a couple predictions, right? This one is from Cernovich, and I think it's a good one, right? So Upside to COVID is people no longer trust all these phonies called scientists and experts. I would add politicians into that, even though that was almost there. Downside is since the regime can't nudge people with lies, they will bring out the stick. Going to get ugly as these wicked people in control now are wicked people. And I think he's correct. So we're over it, but the wickedness is just beginning. But it could end quick. Right now, I don't think we're getting a clean road to 2024 in a sense, right? I heard Trump this weekend and he is on fire. I've never heard him that good. He was smashing faces in Iowa on Saturday night. I haven't listened to a Trump speech in months, really, maybe years actually. But when candidate Trump 2015, 2016, I never missed them. I thought it was the most entertaining television there is. And not that I'm against it, but the shtick got a little tired for a little bit. But I was just curious this Saturday and I tuned in to see him in Pennsylvania, and boy, is his stock speech tight already. If that's what he's doing, this is like a Gatling gun of just extreme quotable entertaining. He spoke for 2 hours. I didn't watch the whole thing, but he spoke for 2 hours. Energy was high. Boy, oh boy, is he with it. So, but that makes me say, if they can't get him on the boxes hoax, where did you put your boxes and who was with the boxes and what about the boxes and oh my God, the boxes, but what's in the boxes? Nobody knows. No one knows what's in the box, but the boxes, right? If that's their best bet, the boxes hoax, it ain't gonna work. So you're gonna need to do something more extreme, right? And then you hear about RFK not getting the security. Now I saw the community fact check that said it's 180 days out or whatever before the election. Scam. That's discretionary. Everybody knows RFK is in trouble. All he's doing is talking about the deep state, and the deep state has already done away with his uncle and his dad. So I think he's at risk. I think most people recognize that. So. But I think it's over for the Bidens. I do. I can see more people getting crazy and doing psycho stuff, exactly as Cernovich said here. But I don't know if you need any more details, I guess, is what it's coming to. Like what Jeffy said here, that the mask is off. The mask is off, right? So that's good enough. That's good enough. Yeah, I also like Jim Gaffigan. He is pretty funny. Tommy, Gaffigan episode was good to see what a broken brain looks like and how easy it is to spot it in real time. Absolutely. Yeah. I think he's going to get over it, though. I think he's going to get over it. I didn't see the interview, just saying his stand-up's pre-COVID. He's a funny guy. Right? He's a funny guy. Haven't watched him in 5 years. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to go around. You don't have to go out and get his comedy. It's not that funny. They should retire. They really should. Because not just for their own personal benefit. If they don't retire now, I think anyone who oversteps here is going to get tossed from a spaceship. So the spaceship tossers, like, this is the line of spaceship tossing right now. Like, we're in the spaceship tossing line. Like I don't think Joe makes it to spaceship tossing, right? I stand by my prediction a couple of days ago. I think he's in the sleep in a couple of days. It's over, right? I don't see anyone protecting him anymore, so that's over. That he's already having to acknowledge his grandkid is kind of like, please don't shoot me, right? Like, I don't think he was willing to do that before. So I don't think there's much protection for him anymore. So it's just too much. It's just he's too corrupted. I don't think anyone knew how bad it was. So there you go. Yeah, indeed, Warren is full mask off. It was never about protecting consumers and going after banks. It's about public suppression and government oversight. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. How much money did Lindsay and Elizabeth get paid to draft these? I will let Elizabeth see my bank accounts if I can see hers. Oh no, we know she's very rich now. She's a very rich woman. Very, very rich. So look, but again, isn't it amazing that they do the anti-crypto AML thing the same day they're doing, we need the government people in Twitter and Facebook, so you never hear about the First Amendment being suppressed by private companies at the behest of the government. So it's amazing. It just couldn't be better. It just couldn't be better that it's those two together both times, that makes the separation of money and state argument the catch-all for all of this stuff, which is great for us. It's great for business. Then we can talk about crypto and money laundering in front of Congress. Yeah. I mean, let's hope they know it, right? All the reason to vote RFK when the neoliberals are saying don't vote for him. I think he's going to win. I do. And here's the other thing. Like, I just don't. So Trump, as long as you treat Trump fairly, right? As long as you treat him fairly, he'll treat you fairly, right? He doesn't go around bullying people that aren't mean to him. Now, if you're mean to him one time, he's going to be terrible. And only RFK I've seen be able to articulate that. When he says Trump is the most devastating debater since Abraham Lincoln, that's respect, right? And Trump loves that kind of respect, from what I can tell, right? From what I can tell. If you treat him well, he'll treat you well. And I just can't imagine RFK opening up on Trump. Now, if you do what DeSantis did, like, I'm not running, I'm just governor of Florida. Oh, but actually, you're going to get smashed, right? You're going to get punched right in the face by this guy. But if you treat him well, right? If you're an American citizen who wants to destroy the deep state like Trump, I can't imagine Trump opening up fire on a Kennedy this way. He just wouldn't. He's still a respectful guy. That's what I can tell. As long as you treat him well. The minute you don't, you're screwed. And I think he's made that clear, right, over time. But I don't imagine you're going to get a lot of attention. That's how RFK can beat him, right? RFK can beat him because Trump can't beat Trump against RFK. It's just not the same fight. It's not the same fight. It's royalty, you know what I mean? It really is. Like RFK is a type of royalty in a sense. And I think Trump's as close to a monarchist as we're going to get in America. I don't think he's against monarchism, which I respect. I'm a fan of monarchy myself. Not absolute monarchy, of course. I like the monarchy where they have no power and they just wear clothes. And like Kate as the queen, it's great, right? It teaches women how to dress when they're pregnant and beautiful, not vulgar stuff. I mean, there's a reason why you want this stuff, right? And I think Trump's on that boat too. I don't want absolute, obviously not absolute monarchy, but a little king and queen to liven people's spirits and show them how to live correctly. Nothing wrong with that, right? Better than Britney Spears as a role model, and we love Britney, but not vulgar. She's cunning, but she knows. Yeah, well, I don't know if she thinks she's cunning. I think the pretext is off. A lot of these people. Do you have any advice on how to set up a local exchange in my small town? That's treasury management, my man. That's not easy stuff. You need a good risk manager. That's my advice. Get a good risk manager, because managing a Bitcoin float is one of the most complicated things you'll ever do in your life. Just having seen it on the inside at Kraken, it's not simple. This student sounds more feminine than 90% of current political leaders are decades past their expiration dates. Yeah, no kidding. Taking a coffee break. Do it, my man. For context, it's cash only, third world. Yeah. Yeah, I live in Iowa. He is like God here. Yeah. What are you thinking of WorldCoin? Will it become global or more of a toy? Just now, French regulators probing it. Do you think it'll end with French investigators? Nah, it's just a shitcoin. It's nothing. It's nothing. Don't even consider it. It's not a thing, right? It's just another failed shitcoin. It's nothing to even consider. Let them try. I mean, I got no problems with WorldCoin, right? And I don't. My only thought about WorldCoin is don't get like sensitive. Oh, they're scanning eyeballs, right? Oh, you're giving away your private data. We all did that already. It's already all given away. You did it too. Everyone did it. Everyone did it, right? Accidentally. You might not have meant it, but it's already done. Bitcoin is here not really for the privacy argument, although a little bit, right? I just don't see Bitcoin solving the privacy debate in itself. I think part of the privacy debate will get solved just by separating powers, by getting rid of this money laundering thing and getting the state out of financial supervision and financial tracking and all that. That's enough. But I still think people are going to be trading their personal data for a long time for the dopamine hit. I can't imagine that is going to end anytime soon. We all did it so easily already that I can't imagine it stopping. And I you know what I mean? We do it all the time. So I log into my phone with a face scan, right? I mean, what's the difference? I don't see what the difference is. I can't. Only because I know a little bit about how ZK Snarks works and all that stuff. I'm not trying to tell you to get WorldCoin. It's just a shitcoin. I wouldn't trade whatever it is they're offering for whatever it is, whatever it is you have to give them. I'm not lining up for no WorldCoin, but I'm also not like, oh, crazy. Sleepy Joe, game over. Where do I invest in spaceship tossing? It would actually be a pretty good venture, I think. I think Elon's going to lend some rockets for it. So SpaceX is probably your best bet, right? I get a little SpaceX investment because it's going to be one of the reasons to go up there. Cloud casino, UFO rides. I just woke up to that. Yeah. No, we got to throw them out of airplanes. Throw them out of spaceships. I mean. I feel bad for Dems who don't vote for Kemeny. So do I, Dan. Yeah. Imagine being a Democrat and having a candidate like that. And you're just like, I don't know, Joe Biden, he's kind of better. Yeah, Lindsey Graham is really disgusting. It's absolutely subhuman. I wouldn't mind a Trump RFK ticket. Not going to happen. I as much as I tried to believe it and want to believe it, I just maybe I'm wrong. I would love both of them though, but just. Again, I love RFK, love him. I still will never forgive Trump for the last day in office, for not pardoning Julian and Ed and Ross, and it's unforgivable, right? It is unforgivable. But you forget how entertaining he is, and watching his thing this week, like it's incandescent. The wattage, the capacity, the quotable. What did he call Joe Biden in like the best delivery, like a stupid son of a bitch or something, but not like a whiny, like you're a stupid son of a bitch, right? Just perfect delivery. You forget exactly how funny he is. He is the greatest stand-up comedian on earth today. He is. There's no one funnier. Jim Gaffigan, none of these people. Donald Trump is the funniest stand-up comedian in the world. It's not even close. Not even close. And we should all, despite Trump's trouble, I think RFK can beat him. But boy, would it be entertaining. Just watching people melt down. But again, that's what I don't like. I mean, the mental health troubles that Trump can spur is more why I'd like to see him become an eminence grise in the world. That's what I'd like to see. I like a ticket with no matter who is VP or VP. Yeah. I like them. I like them both. Yeah. I'm a RFK guy myself. I'm a one issue man, and it's Bitcoin. So it's hard for me because I'm a one issue voter. But I wouldn't. Yeah, there you go. I want to back the US dollar with hard eyes. And yeah, more transparency in vaccine. Oh, here's one. I didn't see this. The bigger issue with WorldCoin is the shifting goalposts and the 25% pre-mine that was bought by the light. Yeah, I mean, I just don't give a shit about WorldCoin. It's not going anywhere, guys. Don't worry. There's no WorldCoin thing happening soon. So there you go. Anti-war. We love it, man. Hi, Team Lucky. How's it going? Oh, yeah, I did see this. The solid-state battery they invented that will make electric airplanes a thing. Yeah, and flying cars. We've been going on about the flying cars here, so that should do it. I will check that out, though, Cloud Casino. That's all I got for today, everyone. I hope you liked it. I hope you had a good time on this Monday morning. And I hope you see the separation of money and state on the ballot in 2024, thanks to Hunter Biden, the smartest person I know, maybe, right? If you can get away with giving your art incredible valuations, it's amazing. Good for Hunter. All right. Peace, everyone. See you all tomorrow.